But innovation is a bit chicken and egg. You know, it's especially in a large organisation, but I don't think it's limited to a large organisation. When we started on our green shoots journey, obviously there was a little bit of excitement about this concept of green shoots. It was a buzzword in the time in the media. You know, what is this innovation thing? Oh, someone's doing something with innovation and it's a bit structured. How exciting is that? How great is that? Lots of great conversations. But it very quickly turned into, yeah, but what have you delivered? You know, what innovations have you actually produced? And it almost was like, yeah, I know you've got this process, I know you've got this value chain, I know you've got this great thinking, but in order for me as an individual to have credibility with these bunch of people, I'm saying, you know, come on, give me ideas, but not just give me ideas, help me, because it's just two of us. Help me make this happen. Some of that was give me the money to make it happen, but some of it was give me the resources, give me the thinking, give me the people who are going to actually get this product to market within your environment. You know? But most of them wanted me to turn around and say, no, here's something I've delivered, here's an innovation I've delivered, and now I've delivered that, that gives all of this great stuff some credibility. They weren't interested in the academic credibility, they weren't interested in me telling them, oh, but this organisation are doing the same thing as us, and they're using the same process as us. They wanted to see a real result out of all of this. So it's very, very difficult. And I learned that it is all about that engagement process. I've got to engage with people in the organisation. Now, to shift slightly, if you think back to that process, I just want to share with you some of the tools that we used in Green Shoots that were highly effective and helped with this engagement piece. So, first of all, after searching, going into selection, we further broke that up into a couple of different areas. So one area is we talked about developing the value proposition, and we only limited it to 5 questions. Now, when we first originally did this, it was an interview process. So whoever came up with the idea, we'd go and sit across a desk. There'd be one person on this side. I think at the beginning it was a graduate who was scribing, and then the person who came up with the idea started telling us about the idea. And we're answering these 5 questions. You know, what is it exactly? What is it that you think you're going to sell? Who do you think is the customer? How do you think we're going to deliver this? Do we have the capability? Do we have to go buy capability? Do we have to learn, train people? Why? So what's the customer pain that we're solving? What's the problem that we're solving that will make customers want to buy it? And then why would we do it as an organisation? What's the commercial model? How are we going to make money out of it? And when we did this as a over-the-desk interview process, people really didn't respond to it very well, and this added to our problem really, because we were getting ideas, we were producing propositions, and I'm telling you that producing propositions is a good thing to do, but in that instance it was an absolute failure, because most of the time you're engaging one person who's just come up with an idea, doesn't have all the answers. You need to engage more people. So, and I don't know who came up with the brainchild of the idea, but in Green Shoots we had a room, we called it the War Room. Have to call it the War Room. It seemed so cool at the time. And on one wall, we turned it into a big whiteboard, rather. And we stuck these 5 questions up, and we got loads and loads of pens and some toys to play with. And we'd invite the idea generator, as we refer to them, into the room, and we'd say, but bring along some people. And pre the idea, we will have spoken to them, so we had a bit of an idea of what it was about. And we would also invite some people. And we'd limit it to about 7 to 8 people for the session. And this was called our proposition development meeting, workshop rather. And it was a workshop. And literally, Richard and I would stand up. We'd get the team to come up with a title for the idea, so that we all agreed on this is roughly what it is, what we think it is. A little bit of fun of doing that, because you always come up with wacky ideas. But then very, very quickly we'd start to go through each of these ideas and jotting things on the whiteboard. And in the engagement piece was not us doing all the writing. It was about turning to these people and say, come on, get up. Don't sit down and watch us write all this stuff. Get up, start writing, engage in the process, and come up with what this really is. Because if you want us to go and make this happen, you've got to really be part of that process. And the sessions would last sometimes an hour, sometimes 3 hours, and we never let it go over 3 hours. But they were always highly engaging, which also became part of another problem because people would walk away kind of jumping up and down and feeling like, hey, fantastic, we're going to make this happen. So we would then had a call to action to then make sure we provided them with quick feedback on whether or not we were going to take this idea forward. And then another thing that we used, and this is absolutely in the space of what Classy was talking about, was if you read the Blue Ocean Strategy book, you'll be familiar with this. And what this is about, and I picked this off the internet, I didn't produce this, and I didn't actually check to see whether it was a valid value curve, but this is something that's called a value curve, and I think in the book they refer to it as a strategy canvas. And effectively we use this in green shoots to kind of say, right, let's work out which industry our idea is going to fit in, or what is similar to our product. And we would develop key attributes that we think were important to the customer along the vertical axis, so the horizontal axis. And then on the vertical axis, we then try and plot, in terms of what the customer would perceive this product as, or the alternative to this product as, where does it sit? And the point of this, if you take this example that are on here, is fits into a Nintendo story. The red line was effectively what was already in the industry, and the blue line shows how the Wii differentiated itself to be a different product, and effectively take itself out of a bloody red water with lots of sharks fighting for customers to uncharted waters where you had nobody playing, because nobody had a device, a virtual family device on the market. There was nothing there that you could play with and move around and do all of that type of stuff. So it was completely different. Okay, fine. That technology, it seems like an obvious differentiated product from everything else on there. But a lot of the ideas that we came up with in Green Shoots weren't necessarily so different from everything else, as I've said to you before, everything else that was in the marketplace. So we had to use this, and we found this very, very effective, plotting everything on here. And then saying to ourselves, actually, our idea is exactly the same as our competitor's product. So now we've got a task. We can either reduce some of the factors, some of the attributes that we've put on here, eliminate some, create some new ones, or raise the standard slightly to come up with something new. And if we couldn't do that, then actually, you know what, let's just count it. Let's just move on. Let's take what we can learn out of this and let's move on to the next idea, because, as I said, we had way too many of them anyway. So the book is really long. There are lots of great papers on Blue Ocean Strategy. I completely recommend getting out there. LinkedIn has a few groups of people actively talking about this stuff and using this stuff. It is a very, very good tool. And it's also a very good tool for you to kind of taking your existing product and just doing a bit of evaluation. You know, where do I sit compared to everybody else in my marketplace? Am I operating in a red ocean where I need all this expensive advertising, or have I created something new where actually I don't need it because I'm doing something that nobody else is doing? Again, going back to that story of, you know, you can keep on going through a process. You can keep on taking your ideas, filtering them down, filtering them down, filtering them down. But one thing that we learned very quickly is everything comes down to, at least for us, two deciding factors. How confident are we, and what's the level of investment required to make this innovation happen? Because if we're really confident and the investment's really low, then what the heck are we doing more research for? I mean, just get out there and do it. It's a JFDI idea. Just get out, do it, make it happen. You don't have to think too hard about some of these things. And if it is low investment and it fails, then okay, that's not a big impact to your business. However, as the investment increases, if your confidence level isn't that high, then that's what should inform you to, yeah, come on, we need to do a bit more work on this, we need to do a bit more work on this. And that seems really obvious, but sometimes I feel that, you know, we have to be reminded of this in Green Shoots, and we had to make this very visual. We had to plot our ideas every week. We would sit there and say, are we just getting really stuck on this? Because we've had this idea up here for quite a long time. Let's plot it on a chart. Let's work out what our confidence levels are, and let's test it with each other. What's our confidence level, and how much do we really think this is going to cost to make happen? And as the confidence increased and as we reduced the investment as much as we possibly could, we always found an equilibrium of ideas that actually we could just go back to the business unit divisions in the company and say, actually guys, I think you could just do this. Just go out and do this. And that worked for us quite well. We still had way too many ideas, of course. So I guess, you know, this is my final slide. One piece of learning that I had, and I've had, you know, this, I'm going to bring it back to these sessions actually. I've met quite a few people in the room outside of the practical innovation sessions, and I've had some fantastic conversations, and I've learnt a lot from those conversations, and hopefully I've imparted some of my knowledge and people have learnt from me. And I always walk away from a lot of those meetings with more ideas. It's a curse actually, I have to admit. I come up with all these ideas and I want to do something with it, and I feel empowered to do something with it, and I also feel empowered that I now know someone who I can do some of these ideas with. And maybe that's practical, maybe it's not. But I look at life as being knowledge spaghetti, effectively. You know, in order to find the right innovations and to make them happen, you have to connect with people. You have to talk to people, because you get your knowledge from talking to people. You get your ideas from talking to people. But also, they are the conduit to making things. And I had this great conversation with James, actually, who's in the back, who we've met a couple of times. Who we talked about this concept of a networked organisation. What I found in Unipart is the ideas that we could make happen, and the people who were quite effective at making ideas happen were the individuals who, outside of their day-to-day job, knew everyone, or knew a lot of people. They were connectors within the business. If you go to their LinkedIn profile, they were connected with everyone in Unipart, as well as outside of Unipart. And so you kind of had a number of an idea, and before you knew it, they've gone and talked to 6 different people, got them interested in the idea, and brought a load of thinking back. So it wasn't a case of sitting there and doing a long academic study and producing a lot of a big business plan, which I talked about previously, as in my opinion is a waste of time anyway. It was about just getting out there, testing the waters, seeing what people think, and seeing whether we can make this happen. Do we have the capability, or can we get the capability really quickly? And who out there, who would be our customer? Does somebody know a customer who would be interested in coming and having a conversation with us now before we go and build this thing? And that's not just inside of an organisation. So to bring it back to some of the smaller organisations in the room, the same thing happens outside of an organisation. You're here, you're meeting some great people, you're having some great conversations, I hope, and there are probably lots and lots of opportunities with the people that are in this room. A great activity that Frank did at Unipart in one of our leadership conferences is when he got us all to sit next to each other like this, he forced us to talk to each other. It was a novel idea. So he forced us to talk to the person on the left and said, introduce yourself, tell each other what your product or service, what you do in the business effectively, and you've got a little bit of time to see if you can come up with an idea of how you could combine what the two of you two do to create a new product, a new service. And there were a tremendous number of new ideas that came off the back of that, some of which moved forward, some of which didn't. But that was about talking to each other and networking with each other. So that's my final slide, and I hope that you enjoyed that. I think we're going to